All right, that's still coming up. All right. I realized I forgot 3x5 cards. I'm gonna grab some downstairs. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. So I have a long list of suggestions on how to make a tabletop role-playing game scary. And I went through, I don't know, let me see, maybe 10 or 15 of those ideas. I'm gonna switch my screen over here. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, I went through about 10 or 15 of these already. I ended up getting distracted a lot while going through them because I haven't read through these comments before and I'm like trying to learn while I'm going through them. So I'm going to continue doing the same thing, read through these, try and learn how you make a tabletop role-playing game scary. And at the same time, I'm going to be writing down some of the ideas. Salty Nick, one of the people who comments on a lot of the videos, made the suggestion that when I'm all done with this, maybe I make a quick summary video. Like instead of it being like, you know, an hour or something long, maybe make like a 5 or 10 minute video explaining what I've learned. And I thought that was a great idea. So I'm going to write down a couple of the main ideas I already saw. Salty Nick actually had a pretty good explanation, as did TSL. And actually, there was quite a few. A lot of these suggestions, there were repeat ideas in like what to do. So I'm going to start here with TSL frontman. He had uncertainty, helplessness, and the environment. I just got done spray painting some terrain outside, and now the paint seems to be going onto my okay, onto my 3x5 card. All right, helplessness, uncertainty. All right, uncertainty, and the environment. Oh no, I already got that one. And uncertainty and helplessness. Yeah, so the idea that I've already put together with many of the suggestions that I've read here, it suggests to me that scary tabletop role-playing games might be some of the more difficult ones to run well. Not necessarily the most difficult ones to run, but to actually run them well. Like for you to be successfully conveying a fear-oriented narrative in a tabletop role-playing game, it seems like you're having to kind of pry into the comfortability of your players. And you're having to do it to the degree where you're sensing them moment to moment. And so the idea I've gotten so far is that this type of role-playing game is hard to do. And you know, I initially was thinking I'm just going to jump in and start doing a horror one. Hey, it's October, might as well do a scary game. One of the things that's been suggested a few times is actually making sure you have a system that can support it. It's not essential, like you can just drop scary into a Dungeons and Dragons game. People have said they've done that. All right, so let me spit out my gum and we'll start reading with Merdragoon. All right, so Merdragoon says, this question is a good example of why it's good to realize that tabletop RPGs are a form of storytelling. It overlaps with writing in a lot of ways because of stories, but but it's also more of the modern day version of how we do oral storytelling. So it was good that you read that collection of horror short stories, because it kind of helps you with being able to see how each one handles the idea of what makes people unsettled and afraid. Okay, so there's another suggestion for continuing to read. Like, make sure you read different things so that you can keep in mind familiar ideas of what makes things scary. And a few people have actually already suggested that as well. Like, if you want to be doing fantasy stories, you might have to be reading fantasy stories, like to give yourself fuel for your RPG. My normal game that I run fall into... So the normal games that they run fall into dystopian horror fantasy. The setting itself is very unsettling, even to a player that apparently is really hard to creep out, because it bends the mind and takes it out of, oh, this world is normal. So I'll be kind of using that as a way to explain what I mean by the overlap. Okay, so I like when people give me examples from their table. That's generally pretty helpful for me to convey a mechanic into a manifestation. You know, I'm not saying that well, but sometimes you can conceptualize how a dice roll is orienting a play style, and then sometimes like you can't. And so in this case, I'm assuming they're going to give me a real world example. John, how's it going? Good evening. I'm continuing on with my epic list of how to make a game scary. Let's see. The Cursed World started as a writing experiment for me. I was burnt out, and I wanted a world that felt atypical to most horror settings, but also asks you what makes you scared. So my idea was, what if it's extremely saturated and colorful, where it's eye burning, super eerily quiet, and calm fields outside from the occasional rumbling of heavy footsteps, and people are forced to live in these smaller communities where they are all countries within their own walls and nowhere else. Okay, and what is roaming around are these amalgamations. I'm assuming it's supposed to be amalgamations of things that are twisted and can spread if you make them bleed. Okay, so there are some kind of monsters in a really quiet and eerie, colorful world. If you hurt these monsters and make them bleed, these monsters turn into other things, or they amalgamate more. That's kind of that's a cool idea. I don't think I've... if I have seen that before, it was probably like in some sort of anime. So that's a pretty inventive idea. When explained like this, seems pretty... Okay, when explained like this, seems pretty. Okay, that's weird. How can you make that scary? Okay, actually, I thought it was already weird and sort of scary, but all right, let's see what they say. That's where how you describe it in the setting is how you start building that atmosphere. Okay, so they're saying you need to actually work on the scary. The bright cyan sky towered over the fields of electric green as the wind quietly rustled from the blades of grass, and it looked like the artist had separated color into individual blades. With each laboring step, the abomination groaned in pain as it passed the outsider peasant settlement aimlessly. The people watched in the distance with quiet bated breath, wondering if there was someone among them that would accidentally attract the beast's attention. When the abomination was gone, it didn't dare make a louder sound, but they all collectively released the stale air in their lungs. Okay, so creating a setting where a monster could be attracted. Okay, like someone in the party could accidentally attract the monster. Also, what helps is that sometimes you make something unexpected different in some way. Maybe the mist and mines is unnaturally colder than you would expect. Maybe there's that feeling of always being watched. Something like, but it seems like no one is there. Okay, Curse of Straw D&D 5e is probably the most beloved adventure to be around because of the atmosphere of Barovia that was built up over time through books and other content. The story behind Strahd's creation was to make a character that was both tragic but also unpredictable and not an afterthought. And he was to be built up to be this very dangerous predator that is hopelessly obsessed with a woman who didn't want him, and he lives this over and over as a curse. People play with the unknown, the unknowable, and what happens if a person knows too much. Okay, so This doesn't say it explicitly, but I take from this that this character of Strahd is important. Like, having a central NPC might be important. Again, they have not explicitly stated it, but as they mentioned, the Curse of Strahd D&D 5th edition is probably one of the most beloved adventures because of the atmosphere of the area. But then there's also this central character. He's like a tragic, he's like a Phantom of the Opera type of character or something. So that gives me the idea that maybe in a scary game or scary setting, you need that. All right, do they go insane if they look upon an all-knowing being? Do they twist and morph into something ungodly? These are the questions you have to ask yourself when building a setting that is supposed to be scary and unsettling, even for yourself. I grew up with a lot of humor and sword and sorcery, but I do personally get unsettled with a room when a room is too quiet. I need to turn on TVs or talk to myself and play out story scenes in my head just to get that feeling off of me, as I'm pretty anxiety ridden and I can focus on the task I'm doing. Excuse me. I nearly had a meltdown in high school when I was alone in a hotel room on a robotic strip, and I was the only girl, and I never turned on the TV to cut out the silence. I never turned, I'm guessing that's turned off the TV to cut out the silence. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. I never turned on the TV to cut out the silence. Huge mistake. Also, I'm fascinated with how cosmic horror works, so I lean into that a lot personally while mixing in what makes me personally unsettled. Turns out, apparently, I make Fae terrifying, and my primordials even scarier because Frictor got unsettled real quick, even with normal tropes. I don't know what Frictor is. Okay, I'm not sure what Frictor is, but the idea of making fairies terrifying, I kind of like. There's that scene in Peter Pan where there's like all those, there's those mermaids, and like, they don't look nasty, but like, they're all talking about drowning Wendy. There is something about making like fairy type characters or fae characters like disturbing in some way. And I think that's an interesting way to go is to like make like, hey, this is this fantasy character, and it's not the cool kind, or it's not the cute kind. So, hey, Content Surprise, how's it going? Just continuing on through our scary TTRPG ideas. All right, I'm almost done with this one. Okay, Frictor, got there. Okay, I guess having a hag of wishes that thinks literally with her prices when you make a wish to her is far more scary than a typical Feywilds of 5e. Or having a literal murder water horse, a kelpie, actually showing his dominance through simple gestures of conversation when he's in humanoid form than the typical 5e hag. Okay, and I think I think those are interesting ways to play into fairy and like fantasy monster ideas, like going with going with those big creepy smiling mermaids or whatever that have like giant teeth and stuff, like some Mortal Kombat Melina looking mermaid. That would probably add a bit over the top. Same thing with like fairies and stuff. These things are what you have to think about when making a scary adventure, because if the descriptions and atmosphere doesn't feel right, then it's not going to feel like it's scary. Horror is supposed to explore what makes us afraid in a safe environment. Also keep that in mind as well. Horror is supposed to explore what makes us afraid in a safe environment. Interesting. All right, I think that actually summarized her post rather well. She did a lot of explaining around the ideas and kind of getting to the idea that you can make a normal situation be scary, although it seems like it does take a considerable amount of effort and work in your descriptions and things. And I think that's what she was trying to relay, was that you can make normal scary. I'm gonna write that down as a point. Try to make normal scary. I think that's where people kind of find, kids in their storylines, or if a kid like, hey, it's a weird ghost kid and it's singing to you or something. You're like, I don't like it, right? Try to make normal things scary. All right. Okay. Going down. All right. Let's see. Brian Stevens. God, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit is first, always, and forever. Amen, brother. Content surprise, good. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I'm doing well. I'm doing well also. I had a chance to play some more Pirate Borg this morning with Salty Nick from the channel, and then I had a chance to try out a small TTRPG. It was kind of like a party game. I just realized my other volume was up. It's kind of like a party game, but it was a TTR. Not even. I wouldn't even call it a TTRPG. It was called Cheat. What was it called? Cheat Your Own Adventure. There we go. And it was a cool storytelling game. I thought it was a very unique, interesting way to play a narrative game. But had a pretty good day so far. All right. Frostspike says you can have in-game mechanics like sanity rules that simulate the characters being scared, but in my experience it's very difficult to make players actually scared by theatrics, language, and storytelling. It's simply that they know it's just a game. You can creep them out with gross things, but they won't actually be scared unless you hit on certain phobias, but don't do that. Okay, so that's like a lot of people have been saying a similar thing. Like, you gotta, I mean, again, I'm getting the idea that the horror tabletop role-playing games, or the scary ones, are some of the harder ones to navigate, because you're trying to read into what would creep out your players, but not push in too hard. So, I mean, like, I think you have to be a very attentive dungeon master to do this well, and this might be hard to do well. The characters need to be apparently powerless against the enemy. In games like D&D 5e at higher levels, their characters are likely able to take on quite powerful creatures when it comes to pure hit point damage, less so in less heroic games. So that's not a real threat. What does scare them, though, is the threat of permanently depriving them of things of value to their characters. For example, in earlier versions of D&D prior to 3e, undead could actually permanently remove levels from your character, where there were more ability drain attacks. Ever want your strength 18 fighter reduced to strength 9 that you can't just fix with a long rest or greater restoration spell? And destruction of valuable magical equipment was always a possibility. Even the old system shock mechanic was quite scary, with threat of permanent character death always just a failed roll away. I don't know what System Shock is. I know that was a video game back in like the 90s. I think it was in the 90s because it was on PC. Maybe it was early 2000s. But I know System Shock was a game. I don't know what it is in tabletop role-playing games. If anyone knows what it is, just feel free to post it. But I'm guessing it has something to do with like that, taking permanent stat damage from an engagement with a monster. So that almost seems like a mechanical cheat. Like, I'm going to make you scared by kind of threatening your character's viability. You know, I mean, like, okay, I get it. I'm not sure I would ever use this one, but at the same time, maybe I have to have some experience playing in a game like 10 Candles. Like, maybe I actually have to have like some experience playing in 10 Candles or the Dread one, where you just know a character's gonna die, and it's like, okay, get past it, no big deal. Right, if the players have invested a lot of time and effort in making their characters real to them, they won't want them deprived of things that can't be healed or replaced easily. So you can let them know by talking to locals that the creature does that sort of thing. So some foreshadowing of potential outcomes. However, if the players aren't invested in their characters, then they just won't care enough to be actually scared on their behalf. And I think that's sort of what I would worry about. Okay, like if I make a system, if I make a monster that's going to permanently drain constitution or strength or agility or something, then I have people who, they're playing the game, but at some point when their character goes down to like a negative score, like if they weren't detached or disinterested already, they might become detached or disinterested just because I've messed with their character so much. So I understand that's a mechanic. So I'm going to, I haven't had a lot of like mechanical ones be suggested, so I'm going to write down a few of the mechanical ones I've seen so far. One of them was ambience. Ambience. ingredients, music and lighting. I'm gonna go lighting, GHTIN, lighting and music. And then I'm going to add mechanics and system, or actually system. Example, let's see, example COC, Call of Cthulhu, and then mechanics, which I would call, let's see, mechanics, I would call grave mechanics, like death and permanent, what would that be? Permanent loss, I guess. Okay, it's a good thing to take into consider, that some of the mechanic stuff has to probably be baked in for the setting stuff to work well. Let's see, system shock just means that something so brutal happened to your player character that they just instantly die. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. I didn't know that was a thing. I knew that Dungeons and Dragons like 3rd edition had something where if you took a certain amount of damage, then it just killed you, but I don't remember what that amount of damage was, and it's possible I'm even mixing that up with something else. Yeah, content surprise. Oh well, you said you're doing good. Tell me more. What have you been up to today? Let's see. When I want to make something potentially scary, I do this. This is from Phil Mitchell 12. All right, so we got, oh, okay, cool. We have a nice set of bullet points here. These are helpful for me to not get lost in the text. I appreciate the bullet points. All right, now I'm gonna make some notes with these as well, because these are explaining out. Okay, so these bullet points: build up, atmosphere, take away control, make them surprisingly vulnerable, and catharsis. So some of these are repeats of ideas we've already had, but I'm going to double write them down in general. So I'm gonna go build up. Okay, build up horror and atmosphere. And take away control, so loss of control. And vulnerability. And catharsis. Okay, catharsis, I'm going to have to see his explanation of that because I'm not picturing that. Okay, catharsis. Okay, I'm going to set those down and let's go ahead and start reading. All right, build up. Horror builds in the imagination of the audience. You must tease out the scary thing over time and build it up without showing it directly. I did a werewolf story in D&D, and maybe 80% of it was interacting with the gypsy camp and slowly teasing out stories of the werewolf. What it could do, how it could curse a person who was, hold on, how it would curse a person who was infected with lycanthropy. Let's see, what it could do, how it would curse a person who is infected with lycanthropy. So it sounds like you have to already be infected with lycanthropy, and then you could get cursed or something. Okay. We had a scene with a fortune teller providing ominous warnings. Even the veteran players doubted what they knew. This was this thing going to be faster, stronger, more dangerous than what they knew from their past games? Yes, it was, or from their gaming past. Okay, so that's an interesting idea. You're having like an NPC explain some stuff with fortune telling that you're building it up. So like you're doing kind of the thing that characters do in a Steven Seagal movie. Like, you know, he had to be a chef, you know, because the only other job available was president or something. Okay, but not in a stupid way like Steven Seagal. Okay, I've seen that suggestion, so I get it. So like build it up, don't just show the scary thing to your players, let them track it for a while or something. Okay, atmosphere and mood. During the build up, the DM needs to stay 100% committed to the tone of the story. I said potentially scary at the top because TTRPG tables are silly, in-joke laden experiences. It's hard to set a spooky tone in such a setting. What you do have control over is how you show up as the DM. So you can't make jokes or give in to the silly or ever break. You should keep it deadpan and gently bring back the atmosphere, or bring the atmosphere back. Dark, isolation, fear, NPCs, descriptions that reinforce the spooky atmosphere. Okay, so I'm gonna make a note to atmosphere. DM, no joking. DM, no jokes. Okay. And then in the build up one, I'm gonna put a little side note that is, let's see, how would I summarize that? I kind of understand what it means, but I just want to leave myself another note. I guess like, trickle. I'm gonna go with trickle. Trickle out. Okay. All right, let's see. Catharsis is a release of tension. Okay. Catharsis. Yeah, I'm gonna have to probably look that word up. I know that word, but I obviously don't know that word because you're explaining it and I'm going, okay, I didn't know that. Let's see. Content Surprise said he had fun with Deadlock, but also been investigating some new TTRPGs for you too. Let's see. What is Deadlock? Okay, and John says that it was removed. Okay, so 5e has System Shock 2. All right, but it was removed by 3rd edition. Okay. What's Deadlock? I've not heard of that before. Let's see. I forgot it was yesterday or not, but have you tried Mothership? Oh yeah, it was me yesterday. I was talking about Mothership. I have not tried Mothership. Or if you're asking someone else, that's fine. But no, I haven't tried Mothership. I am interested in Mothership. They don't have it at my local game store, and I don't think it's carried on Amazon. So I have to find some, like, maybe Exalted Funeral might have it. I have to find somewhere where I can get it. Okay, you were talking to Content Surprise. All right. Death in Space and Mothership, so good. It was good. Kept taking me off track. All right. It's a new arena shooter game. Interesting. System Shock is in the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide. Okay. Deadlock's a new MOBA shooter. All right, Valve is working on. Oh, that, you know what? That's familiar. So is that the one? Is that the one that's on Steam that's not doing very well? I might be mixing it up, but it's like Overwatch, but done by Valve, and maybe it hasn't been received very successfully. All right, number 3, take away control. All horror is about helplessness, which is why it is so very hard to do in tabletop RPGs like D&D or D&D adjacent systems, because they are all about power. Further, you should never take away a player's agency, their ability to decide and choose things. What you can subvert is their effectiveness. This should happen when you bring the horror out. There should be something about it which blunts normal effective tactics, or best of all, take away a crutch the players always lean on. For example, my werewolf story was done online using Roll20. For this session, I reset the lighting controls so that each player had a limited 25-degree arc view. Hold on. For this session, I reset the lighting controls so that each player had a limited... Oh, because they were playing on... I'm guessing Roll20 is like a tabletop simulator or something. A virtual tabletop. Right, for this session, I reset the lighting controls so they could only see 25-degree arc view rather than 360 degrees of the map. Okay, interesting. They could only see what was 20 to 30 feet in front of them. Only when it was their turn, they were allowed to rotate their mini to see what was on the sides or behind them. Okay, that's pretty cool actually. And I'm guessing that would be really hard to do in person. Yeah, that'd be difficult to do in person, I think. All right. I described sounds in the dark, etc., as they were stalked by the werewolf, and of course, they could hear when a cohort out of view was attacked. And honestly, hearing the other players react to what they saw on their turns, which only they could see, did about 90% of the heavy lifting. So during their turns, he'd allow them to rotate. They could see stuff, or they could hear stuff behind them. I think that's okay. That's a really good example of taking away control, loss of control. So it's almost, but in this case, it's almost as though he's taking away not the player's control of the character, but the player's perception into the game or something. Like limited player perception. I'm gonna put that down. It's not exactly what I know it's not exactly what it means, but limited player perception. All right. All right. Let's see. Make them surprisingly vulnerable. If being outgunned was enough, any high-level monster will do. But you need to present a threat which circumvents their normal armor, actual or figurative. The horror needs to get at them while they are sleeping, when they are usually safe. In the case of the werewolf, it was not a question of dying, but of taking even 1 hit point of damage because you might get infected. Okay, so that thing about getting lycanthropy is something that you could would just happen if you took 1 point of damage. Interesting. Okay, and that's an interesting way to play it, because all right, so yeah, so let's say your character takes 1 point of damage, you become a werewolf character or a character suffering from lycanthropy. Now you either have to attend to your infection if that's part of the story, or maybe your character, you just don't get to play your character anymore because you're a werewolf and this is not a game for werewolves to play in. There was no doubt the party could kill the werewolf, but could they do it without getting claw or bite damage? So that's actually a really, even without running in a scary setting, I think that's a really good idea for a tense fight, right? Like a fight where it's like you're fighting against, I don't know, some kind of creature that if they bite you or breathe on you, like boom, you maybe you don't lose your character, but something really bad happens. So I'm going to make a note. I'm going to make a note. I'm actually going to take a picture of that because, oh, good thing I got my phone out. My light's still on. Photo, other way. Number 4. I like that. Yeah, that's given me some ideas in general just to kind of like run in my own campaign, just to make a fight a little more interesting and intense, you know? That's clever. Vulnerability. All right. Catharsis. So important. You need to release all that tension. They need to be able to confront the horror, reclaim some of their control and power, especially in a game, because unless you're playing Call of Cthulhu, folks play to get away from the oppression of real life, to feel powerful and to have agency. Make sure you let them come back to that. But yeah, let them hear the lone wolf howling in a distance as well. All right, that's a good point. Okay, so catharsis, so I guess settling down. Okay. That was a really good, especially this thing in the middle here about the making them vulnerable. That gives me just like a bunch of new ideas about how to run a combat and not make the combat about like you got to kill this one bad guy or something. All right, let's see. TSL frontman. Fear kind of needs some physical immersion. Added sensory experiences can help a lot with this. Scented candles or essential oils, if players are okay with them. Soundtracks, of course. Also, fog and smoke machines have gotten pretty affordable now. I had, when I first started playing, I had a DM that would do that type of stuff. You know, like smoke machines and things. You know, they were pretty big time nerds, so they got really into it. And so I had the benefit of playing in games where people were doing that type of immersive stuff. Not specifically scary, though, but immersive stuff. Crafty Matt says, scary games are hard to run because they require considerable buy-in from the players. If players are not going to buy in that their characters are scared, then the scenario falls apart. Yeah, I think that's what I realized yesterday when I first started reading through the comments here. Like, this seemed like an upper tier type of tabletop role-playing game for a DM to run, but it also seemed like it might be an upper tier tabletop role-playing game for players to be in, because like, I don't know, just one player at your table being a little bit dismissive of scary stuff it seemed like it could really ruin all the fun of the game. So and it could bring the table down too much. So that I think from what I understand about it, yes, absolutely right. It needs a considerable amount of buy-in. Now, Crafty Matt, do you think it needs more buy-in than other games, like other table, like because the thing maybe I've assessed so far is, of the type of tabletop role-playing games I have looked at or thought about, this one now seems like the hardest, right? Like the scary type of game seems like it might be the hardest to run. If any of you have any thoughts or opinions on that, let me know. All right. What else was here? Content Surprise says, I don't know how well Deadlock is doing overall, but I see a lot of enthusiastic players when you play. Just a little too many toxic people in MOBAs. Okay. I mean, is any more than just like being in Call of Duty? Like, I know people get pretty toxic in online multiplayer games in general. Brian Stevens says, the only thing scary are ex-wives. Ex-wives can be scary. I think I've gotten to be amicable with my ex-wife, so I don't find her scary anymore, but there was a time I did. TSL Frontman says, start with a mystery. So many elements are naturally shared by both. Okay? Disempowerment, curiosity, uncertainty, grave consequences, learning as you go, etc. Horror just has more deadly tension. Mysteries. Okay, that's a good idea. I think a mystery in general is probably a good hook to get players invested into a world setting. Like, oh, what's the answer to this question or something? I think most of the video games that I've played, where I've played them to completion, there was probably something of a mystery involved in me trying to figure out, like, well, what happens in this place, or what is the answer to this thing? So Crafty Matt says, yes, it requires more buy-in than other games. If your investigator encounters the mythos and is going insane, but the player is not scared, the player needs to play the character as scared. It's a really interesting point. Yeah. Content Surprise says, musical theater is probably the hardest genre. Is there a musical type of, is there a musical tabletop RPG? I've never heard of that. I mean, if you mean musical theater as in like just musical theater, I get it. I think I did one play in college. But if you mean a tabletop RPG, I did not know there were tabletop RPGs that were musically oriented. AJ Henning says, MOBAs are the worst. Let's see, Trust. MOBA is peaking neck... MOBA is peak neck bearding. Okay. All right. I didn't realize that. I mean, okay. I never really played that much of the MOBAs. Like, I wasn't really into League of Legends, and then whatever the other one that was like League of Legends, I never got good at the mechanics of like run down the lane, guard the lane, fight the dudes who come down the lane, take over the spot. Like, I don't know. It wasn't a play loop that really interested me. So I really haven't hung out in the communities for it. All right, let's see. Moonhausen, says, hello. I know long comments can be tough to read, so I'll be concise. Keep in mind, YMMV, and every table is different. YMMV. Keep in mind, I'm assuming this is not a system, but it is some sort of code in tabletop role-playing games. All right, I'm gonna move past. If anyone knows what YMMV is, let me know. Every table is different. Okay, let's see. Oh, is Moonhausen you? Okay, so what is? Okay, why do you have a different name in the two different places? That does look like the same face, but your Content Surprise here and Moonhausen here. I haven't figured this out on YouTube because I've seen that a couple times where someone has two different names. Your mileage may vary. Okay. All right. So why your mileage may vary? Okay. All right. Cursed objects. Why does this creepy statue keep coming back to me? I keep waking up in strange places after I attuned to that sword. Why do people think I'm a monster? Okay, these are pretty these are pretty banging ideas, actually. I mean, just to come up like with mysteries, right? Why do people keep thinking I'm a monster? That's a pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to put this note card here. Do I already have 3 note cards? Hold on, environment. Yeah, okay, all right, I already got 3 note cards. Thought this was gonna be a concise video that I get to make. All right. I think I might just take another picture of this one. Sometimes I remember to actually go through my pictures. All right. And why does this creepy statue? So cursed objects. Plus mysteries. All right. Transgressing. We didn't know that taking that doll would set off our undoing. Now there's no escape and no save from the disease monsters stalking us. Okay, that's a really cool one. C.S. Lewis uses one of those in his books where characters do a thing and, oh, if only we hadn't have done that thing. So I like that. That's a good idea. Inexplicable events. I forgot something. I forgot something or someone. I know there was a shop there before. What keeps warping my memory? Okay, so, all right, I'm gonna see cursed objects. I'm gonna say transgressions, okay? Transgressions and inexplicable events. Far from home. All right, far from home, trapped without relief and dwindling supplies while hunted by foes. Okay, so yeah, like a predator or alien or something. Doppelganger. This NPC has been dead for a long time, but I just saw them yesterday. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's another. Okay, so you gave a lot of good examples of mysteries, like things that could actually even start a story or a campaign or a story arc or something. Could someone here be a creature that steals identities? I could go on, but it seems like a good list. Taking away a certain measure of a player's agency is usually required, but it is in service of a spooky story. Let's see. Taking away a certain measure of a player's agency. So what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Since I have you here in the chat while we're going through this, what do you mean by taking away a certain measure of the give me an example of what would be what's a fair amount of player agency to deprive a player of that doesn't like make them a robot in the game, but at the same time serves the story and the spookiness in a in some way that's appropriate, all right, let's see. Like MOBAs, but apparently people are too sweaty. I do like Smite though. TSL Frontman says the Alien RPG has a module, Chariot of the Gods, that's pretty legendary. They're all horror and basically follow the theme of you're here to investigate something weird. Do that and survive. Okay. John says, you were saying you want tips to play aliens and make it scary. A fun one is allowing players to feel safe. The objective is to get the ship back up and running, and you'll be able to get out of the zone you're in, which then turns into, congratulations, you've gotten life support and lights and engines up on the ship, and things seem clear, and the fear you've been feeling the whole game was fake. And then you have the horror show up. Okay, no, that is kind of thematically represented in Alien and Aliens. Right, that's like the moment where Bishop gets torn in half. We just watched that movie a few nights ago with Bishop actually. Okay, so I really liked a lot of these ideas you had. Content Surprise. This was a good block of just solid mysteries. All right, I'm gonna put that there and continue on. Yeah, if you have an idea of what you mean by like taking away the player agency, just let me know and I'll try and come back to it. All right, Glazius7 says, when your players are being stalked through a dilapidated laboratory by Frankenstein's monster, Adam for short, there are broadly speaking 3 different vectors available to express it in your game: horror, dread, and Castlevania. Interesting that Castlevania is its own type. That's cute. Castlevania is where somehow you can still see the entire place clearly, and all the chemicals and fun colors, and you're there to hit Adam in the face with an axe. It's basically the pressure release valve of options, where you're in a situation that could conventionally be regarded as scary, but you're here to rise above it. Oh my goodness. Be quiet, Siri. If you're not running a dedicated horror game, you're probably going to have some Castlevania scenarios, so it's important to recognize it as an option. If you're not running a dedicated horror game, okay. All right, okay. Note that this doesn't make Adam or the dilapidated laboratory safe. They're still threats to the players, but they were established as such. The players are being threatened by things you've established as threats, which I'm saying to establish a pattern. Okay, so... Okay, they're going backwards through them. So Castlevania is the one where it's like a scary thing, but maybe you're a strong enough character that you're here to rise to the occasion. And so even though it's a scary setting, you're a little bit powerful enough to get through this. And so it's not really that scary or something. Okay? And in this case, the Castlevania one seems to possibly be system dependent. At least that's how I'm reading it. Gonna add these three here as well. I'm just gonna summarize this as setting. What am I gonna say here? Setting and tone. Okay. Horror is where the players are being threatened by the things they thought they controlled. Fear overwhelms them, and their body won't do what they want. Adam suddenly pops up and rips their arm out of the socket, and now a very specific part of their body won't do what they want. They have terrible intrusive thoughts. They can't help but act on them. This is the sort of thing that works out better when people aren't actually in control. I see. Okay. Oh, so you start giving them madnesses and stuff. Okay. When they're watching a movie and identifying with a character, they feel attached. So they feel attached, but without the real expectation of control. Or in a video game where the limits of their control are better established, like if there's a canned animation for moving through a tight space, it's better in a tabletop game where you It's better in a tabletop game where you want to play for the horror if the game also surfaces. Hold on. It's better in a tabletop game where you want to play for the horror. Okay. If the game also surfaces this expected loss of control, such that the players are aware that the rules will expect them to give up control in certain circumstances. Okay, so they have to be playing in a game where you've already established with them there are going to be some aspects of control they have to give up of their character, or they're going to be forced to play their character a certain way at times. So, okay, I'm going to re-emphasize loss of control, and I'm going to put madness next to it just to remind me of the mechanic. Okay, so loss of control, madness. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. TSL Frontman says, taking away agency. A ghost, the dungeon master, haunts them for one turn with a charisma check, etc. Attacking allies. Interesting. Okay. A bug has attached itself to your mouth. You can't cast spells. Okay. Spirits attack any magic item use. Okay. So in some of those cases, you're telling the player they can no longer do a thing. And in the case of the spirits attacking, you're telling them a ramification for them doing something. And I guess in the case of the charisma check, it's a ramification for failing. But that's okay. So there are different degrees and levels to the amount of player loss or player control loss that you will instigate. Okay. AJ Henning says non-interactables that move tend to really bother players, like children. Okay, children, anything with kids. Pay a buddy to flip a breaker in the game room for fun while playing. Interesting. And that's like that ambient one that messes with people. Content Surprise says players often rely on mechanics to know things. Okay, If there's a doppelganger, a player might expect a roll to tell them who it is, but you just shrug and say, I guess you'll have to figure it out. Okay, right. So in this case, you're not answering the question that the dice in their mind, the dice should be answering a question, and you're refusing to answer it, thereby not giving them control of their dice outcomes or something. I think I see. TSL Frontman says, horror can really capitalize on random charts, making a dramatic show of the dice. The players know the results are outside of their control, then give a vague hint or two before revealing. Then give a vague hint or two. Okay. Capitalize on random charts. So does Call of Cthulhu have a lot of random charts, or do these scary games generally have random charts, or do you have to find a compendium or a companion book to kind of go along with it for like horror random charts or scary random charts? Crafty Matt says, let's see, I do not like the idea of, I do not like this idea of do not take away the player's agency. Okay, if you agree to play a horror game, then it is part of the social contract that the players will lose agency. See the Alien RPG. By agreeing to the social contract of playing a horror or scary game, you are no longer taking away player agency as per the contract. That's an interesting way to put it, Crafty Matt. And I'm going to think a little bit more about that. I think I like that. I think I agree with that. So I suppose that's one of those things that like you're going to put it in your campaign primer thing. And so okay, a question. I saw a comment today about the campaign primers, and like the comment that I read was like really, it seemed aggressively against the idea of campaign primers. Like the person was saying, why would you ever do this? This is so stupid. You shouldn't have a campaign primer. Like I was kind of surprised, because in my mind, I was stupid for not knowing about this thing. But here this person was talking as though they did know about the thing, but they have already wholly rejected the idea and found it not only unessential, but in fact, oh my goodness, my mind went blank. Not derivative, going down, bad. They found it bad. I couldn't think of a better word. Anyway, so I was confused by that. Anyways, if you guys have thoughts on the campaign primers and people's opinions of them, I'd be interested to get some feedback on it. Because in my mind, now it's just like, oh, you have to have a campaign primer for every campaign. Like that's sort of in my head a little bit. And I don't really know what to, like, I'm not sure I can be shaken loose of that unless someone kind of gives me some counter information about it. All right. Dread. Dread is where players are being threatened by the empty space. Wow, that's a really good way to put that. Like you're even in empty space, you're being threatened. Okay. By the things they didn't think anyone controlled. I mean, you're the GM, you control everything. And similarly, in a novel or movie or video game, nothing exists that a human didn't make and put there. But certain things don't have a will, right? The laboratory isn't trying to collapse its own floors and pull people into the basement. The haunting history of the place and the truth of Adam isn't trying to show itself to people, but they still happen and make everything worse. Dread requires a lot more prep than either horror or Castlevania, because you need to know what's coming out of the empty space and pace the reveal. All right, that's really solid, and I like the way that this is broken down in the different levels and explaining how this one's kind of the hardest. Okay, and it's important to keep player safety in mind. You're there to have fun, and if it's let's see, even if it's the fun feeling even if it's the fun of feeling unusual feelings in controlled circumstances. You're not there to test your players' mental endurance or give them nightmares. So if that starts to happen by accident, it's important for them to have a way to send a clear signal, since otherwise they're just stuck with their regular human voice, the thing they're going to use to play the game and portray their character. So again, this is reiterating that this type of game is hard to do. Interesting. Okay. Had a couple things added in here. All right, let's see. John says, depending on which ones, the ones I've mentioned a few times do, and they have plenty of supplements. I guess we're talking about the random tables. Remind me which ones you've mentioned so I can make a note of them right now. I probably have written them down before, but I would like to make sure. So if you have John, if you have a book that's got good random tables that you'd recommend, let me know it so I actually get it down right now. Crafty Matt says, losing control is often at the heart of scary movies or games. Think of Nightmare on Elm Street. The players lose control of their dreams and cannot escape the monster, Freddy. TSL Frontman says, regarding the ghost bug spirits, or ghost bug / spirits, each one has a different circumstantial trigger or condition. Using different kinds of mechanisms feels more rich than if the haunted house was just one of those repeated. Okay, so I see you're making like machinations represent different aspects of control loss. That's okay. That makes sense. I'm going to add on the loss of control to characterize the loss of control. Characterize the loss of control with narrative flavor. Characterize loss of control plus narrative flavor. All right, that's cool. Let's see. Crafty Matt says, in Call of Cthulhu, if the players do not fear that they will lose control of their characters because of sanity, then the game falls apart. Well, that's really interesting. Okay. So the mechanic of losing control of your players needs to be expressed up front. But this is where the referee must be a neutral arbiter, or else the game becomes player versus referee rather than character versus the horror. Again, it's another like, hey, these are probably the hardest TTRPGs to run. Have you guys all ran a scary, like, is everyone here? Have you, like, I mean, just, if you've run okay, if you're in the chat right now and you have run a scary tabletop RPG and it went well, I don't know, just put like 1 in the chat. I want to see like, okay, versus have you run one and it didn't go well, or both? I don't know. Just say like one of the, because I'm getting the idea that these are really hard, and like, why would anyone try to run these things? Because they seem like they're the hardest ones to get to go properly, right? And like, I'm noticing now that I have a table, like I have a table running, it's a bummer to have a game go poorly, because if you have a game go poorly, it's like, whoops, we gotta reset, we gotta start over, we gotta reconvene, we gotta do a new, we have to start over with a new session 0. We have to do something to get things back on track. So like, I don't know, in my mind, I'm not saying like, why would you try one of the like the hardest level of RPGs, but like, all right, I guess I'm asking this from like a new person perspective. So there's a part of me that's like, these seem hard, you know, like it's like playing one of those games on hardcore mode or something. Well, I'll have a session go bad now and again. But that was after I tested it with so many people and random people too. John, so you did like pickup groups, like scary pickup groups. Interesting. Crafty Matt says it's easy to run a scary game if you have player buy-in. So do you think the player buy-in is at least equal to the dungeon master ability? Like let's say there's a scale of the players leaning in and the dungeon master leaning in. Do you think one of those is more important than the other? I don't know, that's a little simplistic, but you cannot spring a scary game on players who are unaware. Okay. All right, let me keep reading. Okay, we got Mr. Pirate Dancer also gave me bullet points. Thank you, Mr. Pirate Dancer. All right, think thriller or suspense more than horror gore. Okay, a good thriller could simply have characters scream off camera and then a body is found. And that's all the description. It's more about the clock of characters running out. Interesting. Keep them moving by giving the players a direction to go, even blindly. That is to say, there is a safe base to the north, or you remember there's a fire extinguisher in the kitchen and another one down by the basement wood stove. You'll have to go downstairs past the beast to get either of them. Okay, so you point out things that they might need that are in dangerous places. Okay, giving them dangerous directions to go in. That's a cool idea, and that's I'm going to add that one to the list. This list is getting extensive, but some of these ideas are very different from each other. So give them dangerous directions, or just give them direction. Okay, give direction. I'm gonna put in parentheses dangerous. All right, remove their resources. The more you can do this subtly, the better. That is to say, give them the problem of being cold, so they might use up torches to heat themselves. Warm now, dark later. The more a variety of resources might work, the more agency they feel instead of feeling forced to use up torches. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Maybe they can burn books, but those books tell how to defeat monsters they're about to face. Okay. And yeah, limited resources, we've got that one. Don't tell the characters what the monsters are. Theater of the mind can help here. Instead, describe it by what they've been able to sense. The sharp-tailed thing, the salty peg-leg wanderer, smelly ooze. Have a backup name you can call it instead should they figure it out, e.g. the many-legged monster, the beast, the tentacled thing. Or if you add mythos, then the nightmare or the thing, whatever. Don't change the monster if they've figured it out. Just refuse to call it by an ordinary name. Although you can upgrade the monster into something new, similar to Alien or the Thing. That's an interesting point. That's a clever idea. If they figure it out too quickly, or have multiple monsters to be defeated. Okay. Bonus tip: use clocks. When they run out, surprise the characters with interest. Make it worse than they thought. That is to say, have an obvious monster banging at the door to signal a clock is running. When the time runs out, though, another monster is bursting through the floor or the ceiling, or out of another character. Then have the obvious monster join in a round or two later. These are really clever ideas. Like I'm getting the sense that like some of you all have played a lot of these things, and you know you've gotten some mileage from this, because these like I understand someone can basically just watch a lot of horror movies and describe some of these situations, but a lot of times when I'm reading these comments like on how to run games, it feels like more than just talking about a story that you've read. Like I get the sense that this person has actually run a scene like this, which again is interesting. Having a main monster not be the primary monster, and that monster is going to join in the fight. And now they have two monsters. That sounds fun. All right, let's see. Okay, so a bunch of you put one and two. So we have a lot of successful games. People are having no problem running these things, or at least you've learned your way into it. So okay, 1 and 2, because some of the testing phases were rough. Let's see. TSL Frontman says, I've done a few Halloweeny ones, but it wasn't real fear, more suspense, mystery. Anxious curiosity, fearful moments came from really intense narrative notes or opportunities. John says, yeah, he played in pickup groups, often like at bars, that he knew the owners and of other places. Okay. Immature players will ruin your scary game. Interesting. Now, when you say immature players, do you mean human beings who are immature like they are youth, or do you mean people who are immature at playing tabletop RPGs? Like, because I mean, I can see those they could be two different things. Content Surprise says, keep in mind you can get some of the spooky season in a game that isn't scary per se. A Halloween-themed game can be spooky and fun. John says, you make them pout by coming to odds with the horror, and then they can sit there silently or leave. Make them pout by coming to odds. Oh, okay. I think we're talking about the pug groups. TSL Frontman says, I'd highly recommend reading through an Alien RPG. Oh, okay. Interesting. Alien RPG for how those disempowerment elements are applied. They do a pretty good job of explaining their unique properties if you have the time. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be looking at an Alien RPG pretty soon, like probably before the end of this month. I think I'll be getting a copy of the Alien starter box, and I think that comes with one of the cinematic adventures or something. So I'm hoping to get some ideas on how these things play out. John says, another really fun timer scare tactic is low oxygen. Again, in space horror games, I had a game where I allowed players to keep their helmet on due to low oxygen in the ship. Interesting. The timer is about when oxygen in the ship runs out. But here's the kicker. If you keep your helmet on, you have less vision. If you don't, you're on the clock for oxygen. Okay, immature people. I get it. TSL Frontman says, try to get your players to say, are we sure we want to do that more than once? Huh. That's a really good goal. I'm going to write that down. Let's see. Get your players to say, do we really want to do that? That's good. I think of the that is a laudable goal. I think that's the sign that you have your players doing the buy-in that Crafty Matt is talking about. And like, if you can get your players to say the words, are we sure we want to do that? Right? Like you essentially have established that they are doing the proper buy-in. Good job, TSL. So choose between not being able to see as well in the dark ship or seeing but potentially dying due to lack of oxygen. Okay, so choosing a bad or a worse option. All right, I'm gonna write down choose. Let's see. Give players choice. Choices between two bad options. Or two bad outcomes, I guess. Or maybe more, two or more. Okay. All right, let me keep going. We were just finishing up with Mr. Pirate Dancer, and now we're on to Satori. All right. Atmosphere. Mystery and monsters that are hard to see and kill. In Shadowdark, tough monsters, and delicate and deliberately using the torch rule with those elements should be plenty. It's there to add caution and horror vibes to the game. On that, Arcane Library is building a horror dungeon next month too. That one, I feel like that it may have actually already come out. I know Kelsey just announced that she released like a small module or something. So, concise, good explanation. And I'm terrible at sticking with the torch rule. I'm just the worst. I got a little better about it this last game. I actually had monsters attacking the torches, and I beat the heck out of my son. He went down into an area where there were goblins, and they were just going to town on him. He almost died. All right, let's see. Wickedly One says there are a few ways to do it. Some is just you being a jerk as a DM. The other, let's see, there are a few ways to do it. Some is just you being a jerk as a DM. The other, in my opinion, is harder, which relates to the pacing and tone of your game. All right, let's start easy. Being a jerk as a DM. A tried and true classic is to grab a handful of dice, roll them, keep rolling them, cock your head to the side and say, then look up for a half a second like you're trying to think about something. Then look at your players almost every single time. They're looking at you trying to figure out why you're rolling. And then you just say, I was checking something. You guys can continue. That will set them on edge, even when you don't have anything you're actively working on. It instills dread and drama and makes them feel like something is going to happen and generally causes the game to start moving. The other is a little annoying trick but requires a bit of build-up once the question is asked. They open a door and you ask who is actually opening the door. Someone will usually speak up. Then you ask, what hand are you using to open the door? And they will answer. Then you'll check your adventure book or notes, potentially roll some dice, then set all of that down and you describe with tension, so slowly and dramatically, them harmlessly opening the door. They will feel a relief if you have done it right, and they will fear any door that you put in front of them for the rest of the adventure. Okay, I'm sad to admit I've done some of those. I mean, like, not necessarily to be like a jerk DM, but like at times I'm asking the question to not ratify, but like to okay, which one of you is doing the thing, right? Like, because maybe a bad thing is happening and I'm trying to figure out who the bad thing is happening to. And I'm pretty sure I have done the I'm pretending to roll thing, so I might be a jerk DM sometimes. But I get what they mean. Like, this is low tier, or at least like, how do I want to say it? This is not good DMing, and I can see what they mean, because I agree. And when I know when I'm doing that thing where I'm just like rolling dice, like I'm running on empty at that point in the night or something. So I'll give Wickedly that. All right. Then there is doing it as a DM within the game itself, rather than being a jerk. Jerk is easy, and it is great to play on everyone, play on players every now and again. If you're trying to do horror, horror is all about tension. Find some videos on 2E gameplay and you'll discover it was more of a survival horror game. When you think of the game that way, it'll help you ease into the genre. Shadow Dark does it with torches, but there are other ways to do it. Things you can do is actually cut off their options. They enter a cave and suddenly the cave behind them collapses. A large amount of stone has blocked their path. Expect them to try and dig themselves out, but don't let them unless the way to do it is reasonable. The only way out is through the cutoff option. The only way out is through. It is a cutoff option. Another is timers, which Shadow Dark does with torches, but you can do it with all kinds of things. Water fills the room, you're running out of air, food is running out, your torches are broken, the ground shakes as purple worms shift through the stone beneath your feet. A good way to handle them is like any other worm. Worms respond to light and movement. To balance purple worms against low-level parties, use that rather than tremor sense and your players will feel tension, okay? The only problem with doing these ideas is overuse. If you use these ideas to death in a horror game, it will feel more like a slog than a horror game. This is handled by your pacing. You can use all these ideas, but you should definitely build your atmosphere and tone between. Things that they cannot solve with their character sheets, such as a spiderweb tunnel. You hear voices further ahead. You see a dead body of someone from your past. Could be a good use of creativity to ask who it is. Use the creativity to ask who it is to your player and get them thinking about their character. Okay, so that's a really good idea right there to connect the horror to the players. Hey, you see a body of a dead comrade or whatever. Who is it? I like that. Music actually can handle tone very well. By far, when running a horror game, a good sound to play on repeat is the thrum of a heartbeat. It gives a lot of anxiety, and gives me a lot of anxiety, and I'm not the only one. Finally, you need to make sure your players know that death is on the table and it can happen at any time. I tell my players this in 5e, even though I am lying, just to scare them a little bit. I like that last addition, because you're right, you can't really kill your players. I think it was helpful to actually have this pointed out. You know, again, like the pretending that you're rolling something when you're not really, like I've done that, and I am aware of the fact that it's kind of a doofus move. So, and then the same thing with like over asking questions about a nothing thing. I like their examples about how to actually play into the tension and the timers and things. So, so I'm going to add timers because I don't think I actually put timers down yet, but this has emphasized it a bit. Here, this one here, timers. Torches. I don't know, others. Okay. Let's see. Hello, Mythic Mountain RPG. How are you doing? Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying you love the channel. Let's see. I missed a few things. Nope. Read that. Timers. Here's the... Okay, got the helmet part. Okay. It was fun because the only player to survive was sweating bullets. Oh, yeah, here we go. Crafty Matt says, and scary games of horror are not for everyone. Imagine you go to dinner with the wife and it's dinner theater murder mystery and you didn't want dinner theater. That's a bad time. Yeah, I gotcha. And you know, that's okay. That's a really good point you make, because that's the thing I'm kind of sensing at my table with regards to Shadow Dark. I get the idea that my players aren't really interested in playing this kind of game, you know, or at least not to the degree that I know how to play it. And that might be the thing, right? Like if I stepped back and like some really talented dungeon master were to step in my place and run a scary game, it might work perfectly for my table, including like myself as well. But I'm not that great of a DM, and so like this thing right here, it feels a little bit above me. You know, like it feels like I'm not sure I know exactly how much to push into a novel idea versus a scary idea, and like necessarily differentiating between the two. Like I'm pretty perceptive about people, but you know, again, this is more than just being perceptive. This is being perceptive and maintaining focus on a narrative and maintaining like tension timers. Like these are like the amount of notes that I have just from the comments here, and like most of these notes are relatively different. Like environment, uncertainty, helplessness, try to make normal things scary. Ambience, it's kind of environment, but that's also in the real world. System, for example, Call of Cthulhu. Mechanics, grave death, permanent loss. Build up, horror, atmosphere, I got that one already, I can cross that one off. Loss of control, limited player perception. Vulnerability, I already have, I can cross that one off. Catharsis, I don't know, this is like 10 or 20, there's like 20 different things you kind of need to be managing. Like, you know, okay, cursed objects, mysteries, transgressions, inexplicable events, settings and tones. Obviously, you don't have to do all of these things, but these are all like things that would probably be very helpful. And if you're a DM who has these in your wheelhouse autonomically, I'm sure you're going to do a much better job of running a scary game. And that's the thing, is like, I think people made the point of Shadow Dark kind of being a scary game, and it's like, now I realize I'm kind of playing in a horror-ish setting, and I'm going, yeah, I'm not very good at it. You know, like I think I need to. I think a system change is maybe not necessary, but it might be smart. You know. Hold on, I was reading that. Okay, it was fun because the only player to survive kept his helmet on the entire time and was just sweating bullets in real life. That's interesting. So all your other players died of oxygen loss? That's funny. Content surprise. Which hand are you using? Not my favorite hand. Brian Stevens says, choosing to die without the blood of Jesus Christ is the scariest thing I know. Man, that is. I agree. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to read that in that sentence, but good job, brother. Amen. TSL Frontman says, a big help for buy-ins is just talking to players if they want a scary scenario. So you talk to your players, ask them if they want a scary scenario, and communicating the need for group commitment and leaning in. Sorry. Group commitment, yeah, and leaning in. Important lesson for all RPG players, really. So I guess a question I would have is, okay, are there any scary systems / settings that teach players how to play the game properly, right? Like, You know, like there might be some games that do a good job of teaching players how to role play. I haven't seen that many, but I've only looked at like maybe 6 or 7 systems. Is there a scary tabletop RPG that teaches the DM how to play or how to run games?
Some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your iPhone.
Cancel, Siri. What was I just saying? Is there one of these scary games that teaches both the player and the DM how to play, right? Like here's how you play. Because if there is, that'd probably be the one to get, and then just kind of learn that system and fumble through it. All right, let me catch up, and then I'll get to River's comment here. Let's see. Yeah, so Frontman says they're already playing pretend, so just get them to lean into the scary part. Got it. Nick Campbell says the heartbeat thing can really cause anxiety in people, but the Dark Knight soundtrack's constantly building tone that they use for the Joker's theme is a perfect alternative. I agree. That's a pretty baller soundtrack. Hans Zimmer is an amazing composer. John says, no, only one of them died from oxygen loss because they got locked into a room on accident. Okay, how did the other ones die? So there we go. You said the other 2 panicked and got killed by the alien. Okay. Well, remind me, what game system was this you guys were playing? Was this let's see, games. Death in Space, Mothership. No, that wasn't the one you're... Yeah, which game system were you playing in when you played this? I lost track of which one you said. Nick Campbell says, Shadow Dark isn't really a horror system. It's an action system. The tension and timers are mechanics to make the action move forward. You'll use them in any system you run. Okay. And John agrees. I don't want to ask her anything because then she won't stop talking or she'll start recording me. I'm not going to... Content surprise, I'm not even going to say that because if I say it, she'll hear me, and I don't want her to hear me. Okay, John says he was playing Mothership. All right, yeah, I just keep hearing positive things about Mothership. So, have you played Alien RPG? And then, like, can anyone give me a comparison of the Alien RPG to Mothership? Like, is Mothership just way better? You know, let me know. All right, Rivers Channel says make the bad guys unknown for a while in the game. And he also says that scary games are not his wheelhouse. All right, fair enough. Love Pro Wrestling says, let's see. Good horror is about boiling the frog. Woken from hypersleep. What a bummer. Far from Earth. Man's what's happening. Man, what's happening. Investigate strange signal or no pay. Weird. Crashed alien ship. What? By the time someone's got a melted helmet visor, it's too late. You are the boiled frog. That's well said. I like the conciseness of this too, because this is I know what we're talking about here. Well explained. All right, Hector Rodriguez says same as a normal game, but be sure to yell boo when your players least expect it. And trust me, your wife is going to find it annoying, and your wife is not going to find it annoying at all. All right, now my actual answer would be it depends. It depends on your players. Are they adults, teens, or children, or mixed? The game system you're playing and what type of horror you're looking for. If it is telling a scary story like a campfire story, or you're looking more for an existential cosmic horror or something, more psychological, which I don't recommend for first-time GMs, nor for younger players, of course. Okay, so, all right. From all that, I am getting the idea, know your audience. And I'm going to put that on this one here. Know your audience. And know your system. Okay. All right. Let's see, going down. The easiest, most effective way would be focusing on telling a scary story in a fun one-off. First thing, set the vibe for the table. Dim lights, maybe a couple props. Works better if it's in person. Once I used a skull that I kept pointing towards the player on turn, like a silent e-spectator. My table told me afterwards that they found it quite unsettling. For online games, you can have some sound effects ready to use in key moments, like some whispers or creepy laughing. Second thing, the mechanics. Does the game have its own horror rulings? Try to understand how those rulings work and how to translate that into the narrative of the game, so it can be more immersive and engaging for the players and not just more dice rolls. If the game doesn't have those specific mechanics, what I do is borrowing from other games. I use my own modified version of the game Dread. I would be curious to know what their version or what their modified version of, because Salty Nick was talking about the Dread system where it's like a Jenga tower. Oh, here we go. They're going to explain it. I just wasn't patient. Have a Jenga tower ready. When one character has to do something dangerous, that is to say, following the example of the xenomorph. Following the example of the xenomorph, when Dallas crawls into the air ducts or when Ripley goes back to save the cat. You catch my drift. So the character is going to go do something dangerous. Okay, the player has to roll a side of normal rolls. Okay, so different from normal rolls. An additional D4 being the result. Hold on. Additional D4 being the result of the roll, the number of blocks the player has to remove from the tower. I see. Okay, so when you're going to roll something dangerous, you're rolling your normal dice, and on top of that, you're rolling a D4. And if you get a 3, you got to remove 3 blocks from the Jenga tower. Okay, interesting. That's a cool additive mechanic. Every time the player has to make a choice, right duct or left duct, you make the danger go closer. Moving. What you mean is, moving. What you mean is moving. Moving. What you mean is moving. I don't know what they mean by that. And has to make another roll for the tower until either that scene ends. You finally crawl your way out of the air duct covered in cold sweat, but with a sense that something was right behind you the whole time. Or the tower collapses, which means death for the character. Hey, has to be deadly to be scary. From my experience, that's a great way to keep a sense of tension and release in a fun and engaging way. Hope that helps. Wahahaha. I'm going to make an additional note into the mechanics system. People have been recommending this Jenga tower thing, so I'm going to write Dread system. Hang on. Okay, Dread system. Jenga tower. I like that idea of using the D4 because in my mind, like the Jenga tower could take a while, but if you're pulling out on average like 2 to 4 blocks or something, or whatever, 2 or 3 blocks, that's going to accelerate that mechanic a little further, and I think there's a benefit to that. Someone's here. I don't know who. Let's see. Heartbeat thing. Okay. Yep. Not going to say that name. Mothership. Yes, indeed, Content Surprise, you did try. I'm not going to read that because she won't stop talking. I think of it like 5e versus Shadow Dark. I think of it like 5e versus Shadow Dark. Not that Alien is any... See? Oh, I see. Okay. Not that any Alien is anything likewise to the 5e game, but that's how you look at it. You love both of them. You enjoy Free League games. You have many of them. All right. Content Surprise. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. I'll watch the rest later. Okay. Have fun. Enjoy the chat. Also, daily Discord hype comment. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's on my to-do list here. I'm going to make a special note card to link the Discord. I have to learn how to do this. And I'm going to put that note right here. There. That way I'll see it every time I mess around with the sound mixer. All right, let's see. People saying goodbye to Content. Have a good one, John. All right, let's see. Nick says goodbye. Crafty Matt, I agree. You don't want to play Cult with your teenage son, for example. I don't know what Cult is. Should I look that game up, Crafty Matt? So some people mentioned to me like the Lamentation Princess game or whatever, right? And initially I was like, I just don't understand how you could make a game mature, but when someone explained it to me, I was like, oh, okay, so there's like a bunch of depressing themes and angst and stuff. There's a bunch of psychological I don't want to say drudgery, because I'm not trying to make fun of people who have like psychological issues, but you get what I'm saying, like a lot of depression and psychology stuff. And so, okay, I was like, okay, I get how a game could sort of be thematically mature, but I'm so anyways, I don't know what Cult is. So Cult is a very intense and mature horror game. Okay. And somehow the maturity is baked into the system, I'm guessing. Excuse me. All right, Nick says, you also don't want to use the system you are most comfortable with. Interesting. You also, no, I'm sorry. You also want to use the system. I had to read that again because that didn't make sense. Okay. You also want to use the system you are most comfortable with. Okay. Because nothing pulls you out of a horror game more than, hold on a minute, let me look up the ruling on that immersion. Yeah, I got you. Okay. Immersion is key. Good point, Nick. Okay, let's continue on. I think, oh, you know what? I am almost done. Oh, wow, I'm almost at the bottom here. Okay. All right, so we're on Timothy Rice. He says, avoid putting mechanics around any creature or situation which you want to scare your players. Avoid putting mechanics. Okay. I'll bite. What do they mean? Avoid putting mechanics around any creature or situation which you want to scare your players. As soon as you put rules on it, you're giving your players license to resolve the mystery. Huh. It almost sounds like this says you're going to have to cheat as a DM. Instead, drop clues that something unsettling and creepy is afoot, keeping your descriptions vague and evocative. While you're talking to the NPC, their eye goes over your shoulder. They stammer and turn pale like they see something. Oh, you look, you turn to look. You don't see anything. There are stains on the walls. They seem to form nightmarish shapes, although you can't quite put your finger on exactly what. The passage is dark. You think you see darting movement, but when you shine your torch, there is nothing there. You hear a clattering sound in the darkness. You go to investigate. Okay, you find a sculpture made out of dried up, dismembered rats. And some of the bones spell out the name. Somewhat important to you. Interesting. I like that last bit. Like, you're exploring some strange tomb or crypt or something, and there's something familiar to you here. That's cool. I go for a fairly cinematic style of game, a horror cinema, and horror cinema is full of useful imagery. If you ever have nightmares, these can also be the source of good ideas. I don't claim to have quite terrified my players, but there have been occasions where they've had the generosity to appear spooked. Okay, and I suppose that's kind of what I would expect from a horror game if you didn't have players that were super leaning into it. But I don't know. Have any of you guys played in a game where you got the sense that you genuinely spooked your players? Like maybe you had to take a pause or something. I really like this. Yeah, I really like this middle section here of ideas, because those are sometimes the things that like I just don't spark in my head. All right. Let's see. Crafty Matt says the Hellraiser movie is a good comparison to Cult. I see. Okay, so yeah, and I get you. Like the Hellraiser movie is weird levels of intense. Okay. TSL Frontman says a criticism of Lamentations and similar games is that a lot of the flavor comes from reading the book. Interesting. Okay, so if your players don't read it, they miss so much of the stuff that was designed to immerse them. Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? I'm about to get on a tangent. I'm gonna try and keep it short though. That reminds me of like how a lot of the new movies are made, right? Like they make this this Star Trek. Oh, what was the dumb Star Trek sequel? Star Trek 2009 or whatever it's called. It's just called Star Trek, right? The one with Chris Pine. And like, there's this story that if you don't buy the comic book, you're like, what's going on? Like, who's this spaceship? Like, who's this Romulan dude, right? But if you didn't buy the little mini series comic book, like, you just don't get to know. And I don't know. It was just one of those things where, like, okay, at the time I liked it because I was kind of a clapping seal and I didn't really think too much about it. But there's just so many of those movies now that do that. So I guess I'm not surprised that there's a tabletop role-playing game that is designed so poorly that you have to find a book line to get you into it or something. Like I can understand if the lore is adjacent to the mechanics, I guess. All right, maybe that's not poor design. I'm probably being too overly critical of it in the case of tabletop RPGs, because I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I actually do like my rules being separate from my lore, but only like pages separate. Like I don't want them whole books separate. Like I would like lore sections maybe at the beginning or the end of the book or something, and rules like segmented in a rules section. Like, yeah, I don't know, you ever seen that movie Toys, right? Like is it Cuba Gooding Jr.? No, it's not Cuba Gooding. It's LL Cool J. He's right. He's like, I'm a military man. I want my peas away from my corn, away from my potatoes. Can't have my food invading each other. Like I want that in my tabletop RPGs. Like I want a book where lore is not mixed into the rules. So I guess I kind of get that. I'm probably being too overly critical with the Lamentations game. All right, I am almost done with my horror stuff. Let's see. AJ Henning says dim light at the table and sneak a sound bar under the table. Play ambient music from another device. Loud jump scares or creature noises from the sound bar. That's very creative. Oh, is somebody home? He did not fall asleep. What's happening? He's what? What's he upset about? Come here, buddy. Hey, come here. Why did you not go to sleep?
I'm upset.
What are you upset about?
Because
Oh my goodness, you're so heavy.
I miss Mommy's hook.
You missed Mommy's hook?
I don't know where he's talking about.
Oh, I think he's talking about the gold hook that he pulled off of that Dob kit I have.
No.
No. What do you mean, no?
No, the one from the closet.
Oh, the hanger? You want a hanger?
No, not the hanger.
Okay.
No, not the hanger.
No, not the hanger. What do you want then?
It was gray.
There was a gray hook. Do you?
Said I told.
Okay,
Do
you know what he's talking about?
Any flowers on it?
That little like.
It
little,
had.
like, looks like a hinge.
It
Like an
had.
L bracket.
It whips.
Okay.
It
All right.
fluid.
Hey.
And it did not have any flowers on it.
No flowers.
It had metals.
Had metals on it. Okay, hang on a second. I'm gonna tell you something. We're not gonna have hooks right now because guess what time it is right now? Oh, I know you don't want to hear it, but it's yeah, I know. It's bedtime. All right. I'm going to keep reading while you cry on my shoulder, okay? I know. You don't want it. Okay, hey. Okay, do you want to try the car again? He seems like he's right at the cusp of this.
Sure.
You don't have to. I mean, okay. But the alternative is he's gonna be in our bed for like an hour and a half, not falling asleep.
I know. I thought about that.
Would you mind turning the air down? No. Hey, hang on, Riker. Hang on. No. Shh. Oh my God. Yeah, stop it. Goodness. Hey, buddy. Okay. I'm almost done. All right, let me try and stay focused. Loud soundbar. Okay. Effectively sound. Slow your speech pattern and delivery. Talk with a sort of crawl. Crane your neck downwards and pitch your. I'm gonna guess that's tone to make it deep and croaky, and downwards and pitch. You're down to make it deep and croaky. Okay, so like mostly ambient stuff. Make your voice sound scary. I got it. Thank you, AJ. All right. All right. This is okay. So Ingatama actually posted a response in Discord, and the story they told me were like two different stories. One was one where they were using like kids, and everyone got scared of like these little ghost kids. And the other one, they did something with like, I don't know, monsters or something, and like no one was scared or whatever it was. Like people didn't like the kids one, but didn't really respond to the monsters. So it like I think the idea that I had gotten was that the elements of scariness, like you kind of have to know your players. You have to know what's going to be scary to them. And yeah, I don't know what to do about this thing because a lot of people have been complaining that YouTube is deleting their comments and like it's not even just when people are posting links. So that's kind of a bummer. TSL Frontman says, I might have a URL or link. Oh, same thing. So I might have a URL or a link in it, because YouTube keeps doing that. I don't know why that is, but all right. I think I got to all of them. I'm seeing the little heart symbol next to each of these so far. Hang on, those are mine. All right, yeah, woohoo, I win. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of ideas about how to run these. Those are not part of my ideas. Okay, and I have a theme for the idea of the video, and it is like how to get your players to say, do we really want to do that? That's obviously too long of a title, but I might have that be in the thumbnail if I can get my writing to be a little fancier. So yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of stuff to cover, some things to, like I probably have at least 10 or 15 bullet points to talk about. I think I might be able to get this into 10 minutes, maybe. Those are really helpful tips. So thank you all for writing those down. All right, let's see. We had more things popping up over here. We were talking about cult, Lamentation Princess. Okay. Nick Campbell says, spooking people is really difficult to pull off because you really have to manipulate someone's emotions. It's doable if you think about a moment that fills you with dread and then paint that scene. Interesting. Okay. John says, I don't know, man. I'm a huge fan of TOS. Hold on. TOS. I'm trying to think of what TOS means. It's not Lamentation of the Flame Princess. Let's see. Okay, I'm a big fan of TOS, but I love the Calvin timeline on the the original Star Trek. So the Star Trek movie. Let's see. Okay, you know what I don't like about the new Star Trek movie? I don't like that whole sequence where like Kirk gets ejected out of the ship and he like goes to the planet and then like he runs into a monster and the monster chases him into a cave and the cave takes him to Spock. And then Spock takes him to Scotty, and then Scotty has a warp device that takes him back to the Enterprise, and then they're from the Enterprise. Like it's such a convoluted, like coincidence-packed experience, like moment after moment, that it's like it's hard for me to take the movie seriously at that point. Like when they have like one piling coincidence on top of another over and over and over again for like a whole stretch of the movie. And then like I'm supposed to go, yeah, these things are all doable. Like you just got randomly beamed down to a planet and then you ran into Spock, who was also randomly beamed down to a planet. I'm like, I'm like, what are the odds of this, right? I don't know. I mean, I liked the opening sequence to the movie. I thought it was really cool, and I think Thor, whatever Thor's name is, Chris Hemsworth. I think Chris Hemsworth did a good job of playing Kirk's dad. So if we're talking about that Star Trek that you like, I get it. I mean, I liked it too when I first saw it. I think more time into it, I was like, eh. Let's see. You love so when you say the Calvin timeline, I'm assuming that's the guy who's writing it. I don't remember the name of the people who wrote it, but the second and third weren't that great, but the first one was great. Let's see. And the Lamentations of the Flame Princess is insanely deep for unsettling things. Okay. TSL Frontman says, yeah, Final Fantasy 15, amazing game, but the main bad guy is extremely unexplained without buying and playing the expansions, right? And sometimes in the game design, I'm figuring, okay, they must be doing this on purpose, right? Like they
want you to buy the DLC.
They want you to buy the microtransaction or the DLC or the whatever. You know, I mean, there's like older games used to be like, hey, we made a game and then we thought about making some more stuff for it since you guys dug on our game so much. And now like newer games, it's like, hey, we made a game and we kept back all the cool crap because we think you're going to buy this game and then we're going to trickle out the cool crap to you later on. Let's see. It's funny how as kids we dread bedtime, and as adults we love the idea. I know, I totally agree, John. Like at about 4 in the afternoon, I'm like, man, I wish it was bedtime. You know, sometimes in the morning I'm doing that too.
Well, for me, I don't ever want to get up, but I never want to go to bed.
You're right. You don't ever want to go to bed, and you also don't want to get up. What are you doing with my light?
I'm trying to make it go back to how
It was fine how it was. Do you mind just, like, are you trying to make room or something? What are you doing over here?
No.
Oh, okay. You're just messing with my stuff? You mind not doing that, please?
When I'm sick, you can't get mad at me.
Oh, you're so sick. Are you actually sick or are you making it up? Like, you just don't want to go to, you just don't,
I'm
you
actually
actually,
pretty sick.
you look sick. Your eye looks all red. Okay.
And a lot of it's allergies, I think.
Okay. All right.
But it's really bad.
Chevron Red says, "Sir, I don't think you understand how vital the gray metal hook is." No, you're absolutely right. He gets his mind on something and then it's just stuck there for a while.
What's the gray metal hook?
Riker wanted a gray metal hook. Yeah. Nick says bedtime is the best evil. Brian, my sons, sons and wife, love all your sons. I love them too. They're both good boys. Let's see, that's kind of a joke because it's time travel movie, so it's just Spock building a massive puzzle. That's kind of the joke because it's a time travel movie, so it's just Spock building a massive puzzle. Okay, you might be right. Maybe there is something about the narrative of the movie that excuses the ridiculousness of the movie, and I might just be taking it too much on face value. It's like, Star Trek or whatever. There is something about the new Star Treks that's a little over the top and feels a little less Star Trek-y, but that's not like J.J. Abrams' fault because some of the Star Trek movies were already leaning into that, like when the Next Generation ones were coming out. Like, tonally, the Next Generation movies, like, Generations was just average. First Contact I thought was pretty good, but then the rest of them were like either really bad episodes or strange. Like Nemesis was so weird with that whole scene with the armadillo on the planet. Like it was so yeah. I'm not saying that J.J. Abrams is at fault for that, but I don't know. Star Trek movies have probably not been my favorite form of Star Trek. TSL Frontman says it sounds like a very forced D&D party introduction. Yeah, I can see that. Right, it's like, hey, you guys are at the bar. Which is extra funny considering how much the original Star Trek writers did play D&D. I didn't know that. Okay. It's got heavy action. Yeah. All right, well, I have finished going through this scary thing, and I have made my notes. The next one I had to make... I don't think I'm going to pile it into this same stream. Let me see. Let me go down here. I had one that was just a couple days ago. It was another short video, so I'm looking for timing that's short. I'm trying to make all these, like, question ones be, like, obviously shorter so that I... Must be this one here. What if you kill your whole party? That's probably the one that I also wanted to make a video of. And I have 52 comments, which... I don't know if I've responded to people in these. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of hearts. That's good. Okay, apparently I did write some out, but looks like I didn't reply. So, okay, I did reply a couple places. Yeah, see, sometimes I avoid, if I'm asking one of these questions, I avoid replying early because then it throws off my count. Okay, but it looks like, okay, so it's probably not 50. This is probably like about 30 or 40 responses to what do you do if you wipe your whole party. That's okay, that's good. All right, so the next one I'll do is this one. I might, it's tomorrow, Friday. I think we're doing something Friday, but here, I'm gonna switch it over to here. Okay, so yeah, the next one I will do this for is this video, like what do you do if you wipe your whole party? In the meantime, probably tomorrow, I'm going to make this video summarizing. Yeah, so this was actually Salty Nick's idea. Instead of making like a 30 or 40 minute video reading through all the comments, just read through them, learn the idea. Hold on. Hang on. Did I just lose my notes? No. I put my notes somewhere else. Here we go. Here's my notes. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to go through. I'm going to read all this stuff on the stream. People can fill me in on things. I think that's actually really helpful because you guys have been adding to this as I'm like writing it out. Now I have a bunch of notes. I'm going to summarize my notes, make a video, how you play a scary tabletop RPG, and I'm just going to basically say this is like higher tier tabletop role-playing games. Like the scary games are probably one of the hardest, and from what I'm getting from you guys, they actually might be the... Okay, can anyone think of a tabletop role-playing game theme? No. Topic? flavor. Can anyone think of a flavor of tabletop role-playing game that is harder to run?
Or style.
What?
A style.
A style?
I guess.
I'm gonna stay with flavor. Can anyone think of a flavor of tabletop RPG that is harder to run than horror? Because right now, horror seems like the upper echelon. Let's see. Red Chevron. Hang on, let's see. Heavy action. Okay, less science, more action. It got weird for sure. Yeah. I mean, okay, so my favorite Star Trek movie is either The Wrath of Khan or Undiscovered Country, but it's probably Undiscovered Country. It's just such an interesting, like, kind of spy thriller. Like, the music is awesome. I love that end scene with, like, the cloaked ship just beating the crap out of the Enterprise. That was actually one of the first, I think it was actually the first Star Trek I saw in the theaters. I saw it when I was like 11. And I went home and I had like nightmares about the guys with the magnetic boots. You know, I kept like waking up in my bed, and I ended up having to go sleep in my sister's bed because I was too afraid of like the guys with magnetic boots shooting me while I'm like floating through space. That movie haunted me. It was so scary.
I remember a little bit of that movie.
He doesn't like Star Trek. He won't watch Star Trek. He doesn't even watch Star Wars. He doesn't like any type. He doesn't like good movies. He
I
only
like this Clone Wars show.
He likes cartoons. Let's see. Nick says, that's okay. I'll say about J.J. Abrams, extremely overrated. I think I was fine with J.J. Abrams until the Star Wars thing. Like, it wasn't that Force Awakens was like bad or good or whatever. It had nothing to do with that. It was that the Force Awakens was so tonally and story like different than the follow-up. I just got mad because I was like, wait, you're telling me you guys started a trilogy and you didn't have a roadmap for it? Like, that was such a bummer to me. Like, it was so obvious in the second movie that none of the stuff from the second movie was coming from the first movie. Like, they were almost like two separate movies. And that was a bummer. And it was like, all right. And then when they brought J.J. Abrams back, I didn't even watch that movie. Like, I'm an avid Star Wars fan. I still have never seen The Wrath of Skywalker, or whatever it's called. The Rise of Skywalker. Is that... Whatever, the Skywalker one. I've just never watched it because I'm like, I don't care. They're not really that Star Warsy to me. I don't know. And you know, like J.J. Abrams has fallen away into obscurity now. Like, I don't know if he's making anything else. But I liked his movie about the train with the monster. He had a movie where it was like there was a monster stuck on a train and it escapes from the train. Super 8. I liked Super 8. I thought that was a really cool. I thought that was a good movie. Let's see, Chevron says, I missed most of this stream. Sadly, did anyone mention the value of contrast? Carefully placed humor and a feeling of safety makes horror hit harder. You know what? I don't think I have that, actually. Let me, hold on. So, Chevron, if you could expand a little bit more, because one of the things I got as a, okay, I have something that counters what you just said, and let me give you an example. Let me see if I can find it. I had it in here. Did I lose it? No, I didn't lose it. Something about jokes. Give the players choices, know your audience, your system, ambient lighting.
That makes them feel safe.
No, I know, but he's saying humor. He's saying humor makes them feel safe. So I had a note in here. I don't know where it is. But it was basically try and stay away from jokes and humor because jokes and here we go. Atmosphere, DM, no jokes. So tell me a little more what you think about that, Chevron, because you're saying to try and touch on humor. And so what I'm going to do is at least make a note that you have to be careful about humor, but I am going to write your idea down. Humor contrasts horror. Humor.
We'll try because someone else responded on that a little later.
Okay, I have to finish writing first, okay? Or humor contrast horror. Feeling of safety.
Someone else mentioned the feeling of safety.
You're doing it still. I have to finish writing. Now look, I spelled safety wrong. That's all your fault. And it's in pen. All right, let me think. Let me see. I mentioned the feeling of safety. Okay. You're right. You did. You're right. You did. You mentioned that it was taking down the tone and giving like breathers. You're correct, you did. Let's see. TSL Frontman said, I recall a Deep Space Nine episode where a bunch of them get magically transported into a D&D game with roulette for random encounters and dangers. You know that... it might be like season 3 somewhere. I've seen all the Deep Space Nine episodes, but for some reason, like, I don't recall them nearly as well as the other shows. I think Next Generation and Voyager were like probably more of my favorites than Deep Space Nine. See, Chevron says, cool. Juxtaposition and contrast seems like a dying art. It might be one of those things where people just go too intensely with it, and it kind of or I know what you mean. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but I think I know what you mean. Like juxtaposition is something that's, I don't know. There's a puzzle solving ability that juxtaposition can do. Nick Campbell says proper Gonzo weird can be intensely difficult to master, easy to run, but probably the hardest to do well. Mythic Mountains. In my opinion, the key to horror is to simply make information unclear. You hear chittering in the mist. Humans hate uncertainty. We aren't afraid of monsters. We aren't afraid monsters are in the dark. We're actually unable to cope with the dark. If a game master presents a situation that is just beyond the sense of the characters and allows them to make choices, it's horrifying. Nick Campbell says, actually, I'm going to take that partially back. Okay, surreal dreamscape type of flavor sessions are always the most difficult to pull off. Interesting. Okay, hold on. So the first one you were saying, proper Gonzo weird. Okay, so I'm going to make a note about the thing you just said, and maybe we can talk about it whenever we have a time to have a chat. Nick, if you're not doing something tomorrow, maybe we can chat like in the morning. My son's gonna be home from school, so I might not have that much time to talk, but maybe we could chat. And I want to put Gonzo and surreal dreamscapes. Okay, so Nick. So plus surreal games. Hard. Question mark. Okay. Let me put that here, and I might remember that. Probably gonna have to get a notebook for all this stuff. Let's see. All right, Mythic Mountain says, anything beyond their control and sense, or beyond the grasp of what can be understood, vulnerability helps. Games which have flamethrowers and Misty Step make horror much harder. That's a good point. The grandfather, of course, is of course Call of Cthulhu. Even if using something minimalist, Misty Mountains has run Edge of Darkness multiple times. It is so good, just unpeeling uncomfortable things and increasing paranoia. Players will naturally start telling jokes when they get nervous. This can ruin the tone. Managing the tone is, in my opinion, the hardest thing. Presenting something horrifying is the easiest thing. All right. Yeah, that's kind of the idea that I've gotten. Not Misty Mountains, Mythic Mountains. Mythic, do you run any of these games on your channel? I know that you have some games on your channel, like where you do like the sessions you're playing. Are any of them like scary games like Call of Cthulhu? Maybe I'll just come by your channel and take a look at the games if you have any scary ones, because some of the stuff I can get the sense of, but until I like see a game, it's hard to conceptualize how they play out. TSL Frontman says, Chevron made a really great point. Horror and comedy also share a lot in the ways of tension and release. The dramatic irony. Learning comedy will teach you more about horror. Huh. That kind of reminds me of the color wheel thing. You know how like orange and purple are like opposites or whatever? It's interesting. And then they're like the colors that go best together. John says, nervous jokes are the good ones. It's on the DM to react correctly. Chevron says, I think the timing of the jokes is important. Humor before horror makes the horror hit harder. Humor before horror Huh. I'm gonna have to think about that, because now I gotta think of where I've seen that or how I've seen that. But I can't exactly say you're wrong, but I'm having a hard time picturing it. So I guess it's that moment where, okay, so yeah, it's that moment where Bill Hudson goes, game over, man, game over. Why don't you put her in charge? Right? He's freaking out there because the ship just crashed. It's a very funny moment, and it's followed up by a very tense moment. So, okay, yeah, I think I understand what you're talking about. I lost where you were. There we go. Okay, hit harder. Okay, humor after horror makes the audience feel dumb for being scared. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna add another note to the tone. There we go, setting and tone, and I'm gonna say, arrow down, humor, then horror, versus horror, then humor. And I'm gonna put like a frowny face over this one and a smiley face over this one. Maybe I'll remember that. Okay. Let's see. All trilogies with no ending is working only for more money. You might be right. I mean, like, I get the sense that either people don't care about the movies that are in the theaters, or they're just not made for, like, I don't know who they're made for. There's so many movies coming out where I'm like, who's this for? I mean, like, I guess there's probably an audience for like a Wicked Witch of the West movie, right? There must be an audience for that. They wouldn't make a movie if there was no audience for it, right? I don't know. You need to read that book, man.
Or
Thank you.
What they're doing is they're like planning for like 20 years in the future.
What?
In like 20 years, it's gonna be like super popular.
I don't think they're doing that at all. No, I mean, I guess. I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna work out that way.
Probably not.
Let's see. Crafty Matt, thank you for the continued reminders. I appreciate it. I will definitely let you know when I have started reading that book. Your reminders until then are not bothering me in any way. So I appreciate you pushing on me. I'm still right now trying to go through the Wild Sea book and one other book that a cyberpunk book. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, keep pushing me on that. I appreciate it. Chevron says, think about in Alien how fun it is to have a crew eating dinner together only to have the chest burster. No, you're right. They're all laughing and having a good time. It spices it up. Humor before horror, you have to alternate between the two. Horror, then humor, then worse horror, then break tension joke, but then they know they're not safe or that more is coming. Okay. All right, Nick Campbell says, humor before horror, slasher films are king at it. Joke, then booms, jump scare, Ripley is creeping around, come on you big ugly, okay, is a tension release valve, so when it jumps out, okay. And then Mythic Mountains says, not on the main channel, and says highlights are better, okay. Includes how that humor comes in several times. All right. John says, I can't lie, you're burning through these rule books. I'm not burning through them that quick. Although the highlighting thing is helping. So when I haven't gone through, like I haven't even started going through Arbiter of Worlds or the proactive role-playing book, which a couple people recommended both of those books. And if I can learn how to DM separate from specific systems, that's probably going to be all-encompassing knowledge that might spread into things a little better. So that's my hope, right? All right, I'm gonna read this last bit, and then we're gonna jump off. Are we watching a movie or something?
Oh.
You feel like watching a movie tonight? You're not going to school tomorrow? You want to watch a scary movie?
Wait, is Lex awake? Or
She's putting your brother to sleep, but I think she's awake. I mentioned a movie last night in my stream.
movie?
Let's see, hold on. Oh, you're right, that Bilbo scene. Okay, many great horror movies bounce in bits of horror. Aliens, The Thing, Jaws, slasher fix. It's hard to hold just dangerous tension for 2 hours. Humor's similar energy doesn't drop the prop. Humor's similar energy doesn't drop the prop. I don't know that expression, but I think I understand what you mean. If you keep jokes going forever, then you lose the joke. There can be a such thing as something being too funny for too long. I gotcha. Chevron Red says, "Oh, Bilbo is so sweet and smiley, and then he grabs for the ring and makes us all scream." Right, that is one of the most horrific. Like, it's like
what?
Well, in the Lord of the Rings, when Bilbo gets really like into the ring and he goes all nuts, and like Frodo has it, he sees it for a moment, and like his face changes and contorts. Yeah, it's wicked that Peter Jackson like did that, because it's like such an intense scene. Eldritch Gaze says, "Greetings from Sweden. 6 a.m. there. What are you doing up so early?" And
Probably.
probably going to work, you think? Okay. He's guessing you're going to work. We're getting ready, or just getting ready to end. We're about to jump off and maybe go watch a movie or something. But thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you for hanging out and explaining some of the comments and explaining some of the mechanisms that I didn't understand, and then also adding the additional things. Let's see. Nick Campbell says, "Well, I'm a few hours ahead, so I'll catch you all later." Okay. Nick, let me know if tomorrow's good to chat. Just message me on Discord, and maybe we'll try for like around 9 o'clock or so.
Who is it?
He had a couple comments on the videos I didn't understand, and so I was going to ask him to clarify so that I could try and understand, because he thinks that there's something fundamental I'm missing, and I want to know what that fundamental thing is. So,
But who is it?
oh, Nick Campbell.
Okay.
Yeah. Mythic Mountains, God bless you as well. You have a great night. Thank you everyone for hanging out. Thank you for all your helpful tips. Give me this list. I will probably put the video up tomorrow, and then if we have time, I'll go through this total party kill one sometime soon. Probably before Sunday. We'll see how it goes. TSL, been great. People have shared a lot of different and valuable points on a complicated subject. I agree. Like, this is, I mean, it's a lot of information to take in for it, but I think it ended up being way more complicated than I initially like thought. I'm like, oh, you just say scary stuff, whatever. But it's a
There's nothing playing.
Siri.
see, it's just this robot talking to me. Mothership over here, right? All right. God bless you all. Have a great night.
God bless you.
We'll talk to you later. Maybe stream tomorrow afternoon, depending on the time. We'll see. Well, I'm trying to get this other video, or this other how to prevent total party kills. Okay. All right.
Yeah.